Hi, I'm Steve Williams, and this is Scooter and the Sticks. I'm out on this beautiful cold morning. It's around 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And I thought I'd talk today a little bit about what you have to do to prepare for cold weather riding. So if it's something you're thinking about, I'll share a little bit of the things I've learned over the years riding through the winter, and maybe give you some things to think about before you decide to venture out into the cold. So let's go for a ride, and I'll talk a little bit more about it. It's nice and sunny out today, and that can be deceptive in cold weather. I think sunshine warms your spirits, but it doesn't really warm you in cold weather. But one of the important things about cold weather riding is gear, what you're wearing, and basically what you have to protect yourself from the cold air. And it's important to keep the cold air away from your skin, because it can feel like a knife, especially when you get down, it's 40 degrees now, but you get down below freezing, into the 20s, the teens, below zero, and it's pretty bad. So each rider is going to have to make a decision on what they need to ride comfortably. And I will tell you, even though I ride in the winter, I hate being cold. If I was cold when I was riding, I'm not going to ride. And I learned the hard way through practice that a pair of jeans and a pair of regular boots and a pair of regular gloves riding at 35 degrees just wasn't going to cut it at any distance. You might be able to go a mile or two, but I can remember when I started riding, I was stopping every 15 minutes to warm my hands on the headlight or on the muffler because I was freezing. So over the years, I've figured out what works for me. And it's multiple layers, windproof stuff, heavy boots, which you can wear on a scooter. The kind of sorrel snow boots I have, you couldn't use on a motorcycle because you couldn't shift. But on a scooter, that doesn't matter. So it is important to have the right gear. And, it's funny, things occur to you over time. It's really frustrating to put on all the gear, especially if you think you almost have everything on, you've forgotten something. You got to take stuff off and start over again. So practice will make that better, and over time it will become seamless and not so frustrating. But a lot of guys just don't want to do that, and that's fine, But if you are going to ride in cold weather and you don't want to be miserable, you need to protect yourself. One of the other funny things I found riding in the winter, and it goes to gear, that once you're cold, it's really hard to get warm. I often would ride somewhere to breakfast or lunch, have a nice hot cup of tea and something warm for breakfast and eat. And then I'd go out in the scooter and start to continue my ride. And it's like all the blood has gone to my stomach and I'm cold and freezing. And it is really difficult to get warm again. And I would often have to stop somewhere, to go indoors to warm up. But everyone's different. Some people are impervious to the cold. Some people can't stand the cold. And something you'll find out if you explore this stuff. So keep in mind, the right gear is important. It's a beautiful morning, cold, about 40 degrees, but definitely rideable. The biggest problem is the fog on the shield. And I think I'm going to have to make some adjustments to how I make videos in winter. I don't think I'm going to be able to narrate while I'm riding, because the moisture from my breath just fogs the visor up immediately. It's something I hadn't considered. Pin lock didn't work. I haven't tried any sprays, but from people I've talked to, pretty much nothing works. For me, what's worked best over the years is a combination of breath control. I really try to lower my breathing so there's not a lot of moisture coming out, and I frequently am popping the visor up. But anyway, it's good to be out, and I'll talk a little bit about winter riding, but I think from this point on it's going to be voiceover. Just to give you a sense of what it's like today riding with the gear that I have on, I have winter boots that are insulated, which you can get away with on a scooter, but not on a motorcycle that you have to shift. I have flannel-lined jeans, but no long underwear today. It's not cold enough for that. I have a t-shirt and a corduroy shirt, and then my winter riding jacket, this First Gear Kilimanjaro 4 jacket. And it's completely adequate. And then a full face helmet. I don't have a neck gaiter on today, but at 40 degrees I don't quite need it. Probably the weakest link today are my hands. This gloves are just insulated leather gloves. I think they're Wells Lamont that I got at Tractor Supply, and I have my heated grips on, and I suspect they'll be fine. I have a pair of electric gloves in the top case if it gets terrible, but the way it feels, I certainly feel it on my face. I can feel it in the tips of my fingers, and a little bit as the wind comes across the tops of my thighs. But I'm not cold at all, but I'm not warm and toasty either. If I had to do it over again, I would have long underwear on my legs. One of the things that becomes important when riding in this time of year is if people ask me, why do I ride in this sort of weather? And for me, I like to ride. And I look at it as, people ski in colder weather, and often at speeds that I'm traveling. They ride snowmobiles, they hike, they're out. The real issue is traction. And there's definitely, like on a morning like today, the roads are wet, traction can be an issue. I'm not running winter tires right now, and cold temperature traction's diminished. So you really need to adjust how you ride to make up for that, especially when the temperatures drop below freezing, where there's potential for ice, and you have to add an extra sense that's predicting what might be happening on, curves and things like that. But anyway, it's just all part of the process And it takes some intentional thought when you first start doing it, but eventually it becomes somewhat second nature. So let's talk a little bit about the machine you're riding. I'm riding a Vespa GTS 250, 2006 model, and it's been a perfect companion for riding in cold weather. So, you know, one of the things that I did when I was riding in snow is replace the stock tires with winter tires. Now, I'm running Pirelli Diablos now, and tires are something that you have to consider when you're riding. With winter tires you can do a little more than with the stock street tires. I have a small windscreen on this scooter. It's more for looks than anything else, but windscreen definitely helps keep the cold air off you. Just as the cowl on the scooter, your legs are behind it, so you get a little more protection. I have heated grips. You can see the controller right there. They definitely help, but the real key is to put muffs on the bars, and that's how things stay pretty warm. The only other thing that I found was remarkably helpful in really cold weather was putting an apron on the scooter. And it basically is like a blanket that drapes over the scooter, and you find yourself in a pretty nice, cozy situation. And I've been riding for 15 winters now, and was able to ride the Vespa down to, I think, almost 15 below zero when I was commuting to work. Now, I'm not saying everyone needs to do that, but you have to think about how you might improve your motorcycle for winter riding with tires and wind protection and heated grips and ways to keep the wind off your hands. That's kind of important. I think for me, especially as I get older, the biggest challenge to cold weather riding is to put myself in the right frame of mind. I confess that when it's really cold outside, I don't want to go outside, and I don't really want to ride, and I don't want to deal with all the gear and putting everything on, and it just seems like not something I want to do. Your frame of mind is important when you're thinking about winter riding. It's how you think about the cold. It's how you consider your skills and ability and suitability to be out on roads that have less traction, and whether you can adapt to that. And there's a whole slow process of acclimating to cold weather that I go through, and I suspect other people do, and I guess the best way to describe it is a little at a time. I ride in increasingly cold temperatures, increasingly longer distances, until I'm ready to fully ride in winter. But it takes a lot more thought and practice to do that than you might think. So keep in mind your frame of mind and really take an honest look at if you're well suited to doing this. And it covers everything from, is your frustration level such that you can put all the gear on all the time? Can you moderate your riding behavior so you're not risking, a crash or a spill on roads that have less traction? Are you really considering the traffic locations you have to ride in, and whether it's safe to do so in cold weather? And even what at the risk of being out and all of a sudden it starts to snow or freezing rain or sleet? And all those things I've encountered, they're manageable, but they're not for everyone. And there's definitely an increased risk, and I don't advise anyone to ride in the winter, especially below freezing, unless they've really looked in the mirror hard and decided, yeah, I can do this. But anyway, keep that in mind, your frame of mind. So summing up everything about riding in cold weather, I think you need to keep in mind the gear, your machine, and your frame of mind while you're riding. And all those things improve and become more useful with practice. So that about wraps up this episode of Scooter and the Sticks. Until next time, be well and ride safe.